On the bluffs of the Potomac River in Virginia stands Stratford Hall, in whose proud walls an extraordinary family of patriots was forged. As Great Britain squeezed its American colonies for revenue, Stratford's band of brothers stepped into the gap in defense of American liberty. Their fight began in November of 1764 when Virginia Burgess Richard Henry Lee drafted a petition against Britain's planned Stamp Act, a tax on paper goods ranging from academic degrees to playing cards. Preparations to implement the tax on November 1, 1765 continued as colonists' complaints failed to change minds in Parliament. As Patrick Henry contested the act with new resolutions in the Virginia House, Richard Henry Lee, now convinced that words were not enough, began to shift his tactics from protesting the policy to obstructing its implementation. In September 1765, he masterminded a multi-day demonstration near Stratford where effigies of British Prime Minister George Grenville and of the newly appointed stamp distributor for Virginia, George Mercer, were hauled to a gallows and hanged. 1 month later, an angry mob confronted George Mercer, newly arrived from England, at Charlton's Coffee House in the capital, and there demanded his resignation. The next day, Mercer stood down and soon hightailed it back to England. When November 1st arrived, the stamp distributor was out of play. Stamped paper was unavailable. Virginia courts were closed, and a standoff ensued as Parliament debated repealing the Stamp Act. In Virginia, the standoff was interrupted when Archibald Ritchie, a merchant from Hobbs Hole on the Rappahannock, announced his intent to use stamped paper to export local grain to British markets. This would set a dangerous precedent, and the Lee brothers decided to make an example of Ritchie so that, in the words of Thomas Ludwell Lee,
"The infant struggles of freedom should not be exposed to the possibility of a defeat."
And so the Lee brothers called a meeting for February 27, 1766 at Leedstown, where they formed a grassroots political cartel called the Westmoreland Association. At Leedstown, Richard Henry Lee drafted 6 resolutions that bound the association to go to any extremity to obstruct the Stamp Act and to punish as the most dangerous enemy of the community anyone who complied with it. 4 Stratford Lees and 111 others signed the Leedstown Resolutions. Breaking with the tradition of anonymity and secrecy of other Sons of Liberty groups, each man signed the Leedstown Resolutions in his own name. The next day, the Westmoreland Association crossed the Rappahannock River and rode to Hobbs Hole, where more than 300 armed men led by the Lee brothers compelled Archibald Ritchie to issue a public apology and to pledge never to use stamped paper without the authorization of the Virginia House. The Stamp Act was repealed just under a month later, and a larger crisis temporarily averted. The Lee brothers' defiance marked a first step on the path to armed rebellion against the Crown, and stands today as a testament to the intrepid spirit of those who challenge tyranny. Stratford Hall, where the voices of American history still speak.